If you are watching this right now, it means you are done explaining yourself. Something inside you has gone quiet, and that silence is not weakness. It is the moment your life begins to change. There comes a quiet moment in life when something inside you changes. Not loudly, not suddenly, but softly. It is the moment you realize your energy is not endless. You begin to feel it in your body, in your mind, in your heart. You notice how tired you feel after certain conversations, how drained you are after explaining yourself again and again. You notice how often you were speaking, but not being heard. How often you were explaining your intentions to people who had already decided what they wanted to believe. How often you were justifying your feelings to people who never planned to respect them. And slowly, without anger, you understand something important. Not everyone is confused. Some people understand perfectly. They just don't care. That realization hurts at first, but it also wakes you up because you see clearly now that your energy has been leaking into places where it was never valued. Zen teaches that wisdom does not come from saying more. It comes from knowing when to stop. Silence arrives at the exact moment. Self-respect is born, not ego, not pride. Self-respect. Self-respect is when you stop trying to convince people of your worth. It is when you stop over-explaining what feels natural to you. It is when you stop defending your peace. Zen teaches that the wise do not shout their value into the world. They protect it quietly. Your silence is not avoidance. You are not running away. You are choosing carefully. That is discernment. Discernment is knowing who deserves your words and who does not. You finally understand that not every question deserves your answer. Some questions are not asked to understand you. They are asked to judge you. You finally understand that not every curiosity deserves access to your soul. Some people only want information so they can use it later. Zen reminds us that silence is a boundary with dignity. You are not being cold. You are being conscious. You are no longer available for conversations that shrink you, for explanations that weaken you, for debates that steal your peace. And this is important. You did not become silent because you feel less. You became silent because you feel more. You feel when something is off. You feel when your energy is being pulled. You feel when respect is missing. That sensitivity is not weakness. It is awareness. Most people never reach this stage because they are afraid to sit with themselves in silence. You did. That alone puts you ahead of most people. Ahead not in status, ahead not in power, but ahead in self-understanding. You now know that your voice is valuable because your energy is valuable, and what is valuable must be protected. So you choose silence, not as punishment, but as peace, not as distance, but as clarity, not as fear, but as self-respect. And once you understand this, you will never feel guilty for going quiet again, because silence was the moment you finally chose yourself. 2. When you go quiet, you stop performing for the world. There comes a time in your life when you feel tired in a different way. Not tired from work, not tired from effort, but tired from pretending. Tired from always explaining yourself. Tired from always reacting. Tired from always trying to be understood. You realize something very honest about yourself. You have been performing, not on a stage, but in life. You were choosing your words carefully, so others would not misunderstand you. You were adjusting your tone, so others would not feel uncomfortable. You were holding back your truth, so situations would not become difficult. And slowly, this performance began to exhaust you. Zen teaches something very gentle here. You were not weak for doing this. You were human. You wanted harmony. You wanted connection. You wanted peace. But peace that requires you to shrink yourself is not real peace. It is survival. And one day, your soul understands this. When you choose silence, you step off the stage. You stop performing for the world. You stop acting like you owe everyone an explanation for who you are. This is not arrogance. This is relief. You no longer feel the need to impress, to convince, to defend. You simply exist. Zen reminds us that the self is strongest when it is natural. When you go quiet, you stop shaping yourself for other people's expectations. You stop asking, will this be accepted? Will this be misunderstood? Will this upset someone? And you start asking something healthier. Does this feel true to me? That shift changes everything. Your silence is not emptiness. It is rest. It is the moment your nervous system says, I am safe now. You are no longer auditioning for approval. You are no longer explaining your intentions. You are no longer proving your goodness. You finally understand something simple but powerful. People who truly care do not require performance. They feel you without explanation. Zen teaches that when you stop performing, the right connections stay, and the wrong ones slowly fade. And that fading is not loss. It is alignment. You may notice that some people feel uncomfortable with your quiet. That is because they were used to your emotional labor, your reassurance, your availability. But your silence is not cruelty. It is honesty. You are being honest with your limits. You are saying, without words, I can no longer live this way. And that is brave. You are not disappearing. You are returning to yourself, returning to the version of you that does not need to act, pretend, or perform. Zen teaches that the self reveals its true strength only when it stops trying. You stop trying to be liked. You stop trying to be understood. You stop trying to be everything for everyone. And in that stopping, you finally breathe. Your silence is not distance. It is dignity. It is the quiet confidence of someone who no longer needs permission to be themselves. And once you feel this freedom, you will never want to go back to performing again, because peace feels better than approval ever did. Stillness reveals who was only there for your reactions. When you became quiet, something unexpected happened. People changed, not you. Them. You did not say anything new. You did not accuse anyone. You did not create distance with anger. You simply became still. And in that stillness, truth began to appear. Zen teaches that stillness is like clean water. When the water is moving, everything is blurred. But when the water becomes still, you can see clearly. Your silence became that still water. You began to notice who stayed calm with you and who became uncomfortable, who respected your quiet and who tried to break it, who allowed you to be still and who needed you to react. This was not painful because of loss. It was painful because of clarity. You realized that some people were not connected to you. They were connected to your reactions, your emotions, your attention. When you were expressive, they felt close. When you were emotional, they felt important. But when you became calm, they felt lost. Zen teaches that stillness reveals intention. Your silence did not change relationships. It showed you what they truly were. Some people only know how to connect through noise, through drama, through constant conversation, through emotional exchange. When that noise disappears, they don't know how to stay. This is not your fault. It is simply truth showing itself. You did not push anyone away. You stopped holding everyone together. And there is a big difference. Zen reminds us that real connection does not demand constant energy. It feels safe and quiet. So when people could not sit in your silence, you learned something important. They were not there for your presence. They were there for your participation. Your silence asked a simple question without speaking. Who stays when I am still? And the answers arrived on their own. Some drifted away. Some became distant. Some tried to pull you back into old patterns. And through all of this, you did not react. You observed. Observation is power. Zen teaches that awareness comes before action. You watched without judgment. You felt without blame. And slowly, you stopped taking things personally because you saw clearly now. You saw that some people only felt comfortable when you played a certain role. When you stopped playing it, the connection lost its shape. That understanding may feel heavy, but it is also freeing because it means you were never lacking. You were simply evolving. Your stillness didn't make you lonely. It made you honest about what feeds you and what drains you. Zen teaches that clarity often feels like separation before it feels like peace. But peace always follows. You now know who respects your calm, who values your presence, even when you say nothing. And those are the connections worth keeping. Your silence was not emptiness. It was truth rising to the surface. And truth, even when quiet, always teaches. Silence is the space where inner royalty is formed. When you became quiet, something inside you began to grow. Not loudly, not in a way others could see, but deeply. Zen teaches that real strength is built in silence, not in arguments, not in reactions, not in showing the world how strong you are, but in stillness. When you stopped reacting, you created space. Space to think clearly. Space to feel your own emotions. Space to hear your own inner voice again. Before this, your energy was always moving outward, explaining, responding, fixing, soothing. There was very little left for you. Silence changed that. You began to sit with yourself without distraction. At first, this felt uncomfortable because silence removes noise, and noise was how you survived. But slowly, something beautiful happened. You started to feel grounded. Zen teaches that when the mind slows down, the soul becomes strong. You no longer rushed to reply. You no longer felt pressure to fill every pause. And in that calm, you discovered something important. You were not weak for being quiet. You were becoming solid, solid inside. Your thoughts became clearer. Your emotions became steadier. Your reactions became softer. Not because you cared less, but because you understood more. Zen calm is not numbness. It is awareness without chaos. You could now observe situations without being pulled into them. You could feel emotions without drowning in them. This is inner strength, the kind that does not shake when others are loud, the kind that does not break when others push. Your silence became a place where your dignity could rest. You were no longer explaining your pain to people who could not hold it. You were no longer giving your energy to situations that did not deserve it. You chose containment. Zen monks train the mind to stay still even when the world moves. You were learning this without realizing it. You stayed calm where you once reacted. You stayed grounded where you once overthought. That is growth. This is how inner royalty is formed, not by dominance, not by control, but by calm presence. When you walk into a room now, you do not need to speak much. Your energy speaks for you. People feel your steadiness. They sense your boundaries, because silence teaches restraint, and restraint creates gravity. Zen teaches that what is heavy does not need to move quickly. You became slower, and slower made you stronger. You stopped chasing clarity from others. You stopped demanding understanding. You trusted yourself. That trust is powerful. Because when you trust yourself, you are no longer easy to shake. Your silence was not empty. It was full of awareness, full of self-respect, full of quiet confidence. And once this strength is built, no one can take it from you, because it was formed when no one was watching, in silence. You went silent because you were outgrowing the conversation. There comes a moment in your life when conversations start to feel heavy, not because people are bad, not because you are angry, but because you have grown. You notice that some talks no longer interest you. Some topics feel empty. Some patterns feel repeated. Zen teaches that growth does not always feel exciting. Sometimes growth feels quiet. You did not become silent because you had nothing to say. You became silent because the conversation no longer matched your depth. You began to realize that repeating the same explanations was not bringing understanding. It was only draining you. You saw how often you were trying to bring meaning to places that preferred comfort. Zen reminds us that not everyone is meant to grow at the same pace, and that is okay. But it also teaches that you do not have to stay small to keep others comfortable. Your silence was not rejection. It was honesty. Honesty with yourself. You stopped forcing connection where alignment was missing. You stopped lowering your awareness to keep conversations easy. That does not mean you became cold. It means you became real. Zen wisdom says that when the soul grows, it needs quieter spaces because depth requires room. You started choosing fewer words because you now feel more. You no longer needed to talk to prove your thoughts. You trusted them. You noticed that silence felt more peaceful than explanation. That peace is a sign of maturity, not distance, not arrogance. Maturity. You learned that not everyone needs to understand your journey. Some people only know the old version of you, and that is okay. Zen teaches that outgrowing is not abandonment. It is natural. Leaves fall when seasons change. They do not fall in anger. They fall because growth moves forward. Your silence marked a new season, a season where you no longer chased connection at the cost of yourself. You chose depth over noise, presence over performance, peace over being right. That choice takes courage, because it means accepting that fewer people will walk beside you, but those who do will meet you at your level. Your silence was not the end of communication. It was the beginning of honest living. You spoke less because your inner world became rich. Zen teaches that a deep river does not rush. It flows quietly, and it nourishes everything it touches. You are becoming that river. Calm, deep, unforced. And once you feel this calm, you no longer fear being misunderstood, because you understand yourself. That understanding is enough. Silence is how the wise exit without burning bridges. There is a kind of strength that does not shout. There is a kind of power that does not need to prove anything. Zen teaches this kind of strength. When you became silent, you did not attack. You did not accuse. You did not try to hurt anyone back. You simply stopped engaging, and that was enough. You learned that not every situation needs a reaction. Not every misunderstanding needs a correction. Not every wrong needs to be explained. Some things only need distance. Your silence became a clean exit. You did not burn bridges. You did not leave chaos behind. You walked away calmly. That calm exit says something powerful. I respect myself enough not to turn this into a battle. Zen wisdom teaches that fighting drains energy, but clarity saves it. You realized that arguing keeps you tied to the same place. Explaining keeps you stuck in the same cycle, but silence releases you. You stopped trying to win, and in doing so, you finally won peace. This does not mean you were afraid. It means you were wise, because courage is not always loud. Sometimes courage is choosing not to react, even when you are misunderstood. Sometimes courage is walking away without needing the last word. Zen teaches that the strongest people do not seek revenge. They seek freedom, and freedom comes when you stop feeding what hurts you. You left quietly because you did not want to carry anger with you. You did not want your heart to become heavy, so you chose dignity. Dignity is leaving without hatred. Dignity is silence without bitterness. Dignity is distance without drama. You chose that path, and that choice protected your spirit. You did not close doors with force. You let them close naturally. That way, no poison followed you. Zen reminds us that how you leave matters as much as why you leave. You left in a way that allowed you to sleep peacefully, that allowed you to look at yourself without regret, that allowed your heart to stay soft. Your silence did not damage anyone. It simply ended your participation in something that no longer felt right. That is not cruelty. That is self-care. You did not need to announce your exit. Those who needed to understand already felt it, and those who did not were never meant to walk with you further. Zen teaches that clean exits create clean futures because you did not carry resentment forward. You carried clarity, and clarity feels light. You may notice that after this, you feel calmer. Your mind is quieter. Your heart is steadier. That is the reward of leaving with dignity. Your silence was not weakness. It was maturity speaking softly. And maturity always chooses peace over proving a point. Your quiet is proof you no longer need validation. This is the lesson few reach. When you needed validation, you spoke often. When you needed reassurance, you explained deeply. But when you found your center, you became quiet. Zen says, when the cup is full, it does not beg to be filled. Your silence is fullness. You no longer need to be echoed to feel real. That is mastery. 8. The deepest truth. Silence is an act of love toward yourself. Finally, understand this. Your silence was not meant to punish anyone. It was meant to protect something precious. Your peace. Zen compassion begins within. You chose silence because your nervous system deserved rest, your heart deserved safety, and your spirit deserved room to breathe. That choice is not weakness. It is wisdom, and wisdom always speaks softly.